On New Year's Day 2020, while scrolling through Twitter, I noticed that a number of people were posting their decade in review. The tweets listed weddings, kids being born, degrees, awards, trips, all their accomplishments. And so I decided to tweet about my last 10 years as well. I told people about how I got engaged to a wonderful guy, and then we got married. We had a baby, and we bought a house. I was promoted and tenured as an associate professor in my department. Then we had another baby. And all the while, I continued to be a #boss lady at work. To my surprise, this tweet started going viral pretty quickly. I always think it's cool when I get about 100 likes on a social media post. But this tweet got 1,000. And then 10,000. And by the end of the week, it had about 30,000 likes. I was shocked when friends started telling me that they saw me featured on Working Mother magazine and Parents magazine. And, even more excitingly, George Takei's Facebook page. Then I started getting calls from the national media. I swear this isn't a humble brag. I never thought my story was that special. Sure, I have a PhD, and I'm a tenured member of my department at a large flagship university. However, I also suffer from imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome has been defined a number of ways over the years. It's conceptualized as the idea that you think your success comes from luck rather than hard work and skill. And of course, you're concerned with being found out. I prefer psychologist Audrey Irvin's definition. She says that imposter syndrome can apply to anyone who isn't able to internalize and own their own success. That's me. I've always relied on other people to define my success. So I'd be the first to tell you that I wasn't that successful as an academic. As a grad student, I'm pretty sure I surprised everyone when I got a job offer from a nationally recognizable university. I had never been one of the superstars in my graduate program. Then, when I started my job as an assistant professor, I continued to let other people tell me my value. My accomplishments, whether it was a publication or an invitation to give a talk in a pretty cool place, was met with indifference rather than enthusiasm. I had colleagues disparage my research, saying it was low-hanging fruit rather than celebrating my productivity. And when I was nominated for a university-wide award, another colleague said that there were other members of our department who were more deserving, even though I was the only one who had been nominated. These are just two examples. I can't begin to say how those words and those phrases stayed with me. I know I'm a good professor. I know I'm a strong researcher. I know that my students seek out my mentorship. And yet, I let those words and others fester under my skin for years. All my life, I've let other people tell me my value. In an effort to encourage me, my mom instilled the idea that I could always work just a little bit harder, that there was always room for improvement. And this was amplified by friends, previous significant others, professors, and now colleagues. I would ruminate on their words or things I considered to be implied when there were no words. For a while now, I've been seeing a therapist to get past this imposter syndrome and to recognize my own self-worth. During this time, I've reflected on these unreasonable expectations that we seem to pass along to the next generation of women. Since I was a young girl, I put so much stock in what others thought of me. Was I the smartest in the room? Was I winning all the awards? Was I at the top of my class? And if I wasn't, who was I? I felt that my intelligence was my one true value. We also tell women things like grit and confidence are skills that successful, high-achieving women have. But vulnerability, that's a weakness. That's not a strength. So we teach children and we stress to adults that they need to hide weaknesses and emphasize strengths. We literally tell people that they can't be themselves unless they are naturally confident. Most certainly, successful women don't talk about their families or their kids. They don't have a lilt to their voice. They read cutting-edge literary novels. And if they don't, well, they still have to project that expected appearance. This is why imposter syndrome is so rampant among high-achieving women, especially in academia. For over a decade, I've lived in fear that someone would figure out that I wasn't as smart as I presented myself to be. And actually, to be honest, I thought it was pretty obvious. Sure, I have the PhD, I had publications, I teach these classes, but I always felt that I just wasn't smart enough. Instead of oozing self-confidence, I spent a decade and a half paralyzed in worry. I worried about making the wrong move, saying the wrong thing, and basically revealing the real Christina. I was anxious and worried, and certainly not confident. So how did my decade in review end up going viral? It's simple. It was my vulnerability and my willingness to show the real me. In The Gifts of Imperfection, Dr. Brené Brown writes that authenticity is a collection of choices that we have to make every day. It's about the choice to show up and be real, the choice to be honest, the choice to let our true selves be seen. What attracted reporters and commenters to my tweet wasn't my accomplishments. It was the fact that I was willing to go beyond that and share what my real decade looked like. I revealed my postpartum depression that took over my life soon after my son was born. I wrote about my struggles with endometriosis and the 6 abdominal surgeries that I had over those 10 years in order to deal with the symptoms. I shared my struggles with infertility, how we desperately wanted another baby but couldn't get pregnant. We tried for 15 months with the help of a fertility specialist and still had no luck. And then when we finally gave up, we found ourselves pregnant the next month. I mentioned the hysterectomy that changed my life. What resonated with people wasn't my PhD or my promotion. It was that I was willing to show the bad with the good. I was shocked by the supportive comments that appeared on Twitter. Readers called me a survivor, a superwoman, and a rock star. I've had commenters reach out to me to thank me for being vulnerable, transparent, and real. I was featured on Headline News and Good Morning America right under a picture of Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. It was a whirlwind experience, to say the least. However, I still felt like I was hiding my dirty little secret. In academia, we're conditioned not to share what happens to us, whether it's a journal rejection, harassment, or just bad behavior. After this incredible experience of going viral for being authentic and vulnerable on social media, how was I still holding on to these things, these words and comments that had gotten into my head all these years ago? How was I still asking myself that maybe I had done something wrong and maybe I did deserve those things that had been said to me? So today, I've decided to reclaim my narrative. I'm finished relying on external measures of my value, like people's comments on my work, likes on social media posts, and even the size of my jeans. Social media and our newly amplified digital lives makes this even worse. There are moms on Instagram who are just so perfect. They make a home-cooked meal every night, and their houses are never messy, and they go on the most fabulous vacations. Let's not even start on their hair and makeup. I know that's not real life, but when I see their perfect eyeliner on their Instagram stories, I find myself wondering why I don't look like that. Back in January, Headline News asked me to be interviewed via Skype. I pulled up my computer's camera and looked around at what needed to be moved out of sight. I piled my mess just outside of the camera frame, and my office looked so perfect. But it wasn't. I could tell you what my home office looks like during the pandemic, or what's going on behind this green screen, but you could probably guess. So let's stop the comparison and expectations that have gotten so out of hand as we only have peeks into people's real lives. We don't have their whole story. We only have what they've decided to share with us. We don't know if their marriage is as great as they say, or if they have the resources to keep up with what their followers expect of them. It's the same with people who constantly put you down or try to minimize your contributions. It might be time for a reality check. What are they doing? Are they excelling in the way that they expect you to excel? Something tells me if you look behind their scenes, you'll be surprised with what you see. Sometimes people judge others in an effort to avoid that deep dive inside themselves. It's their armor. One of my favorite comedians, Amy Poehler, said, "I want to be around people who do things. I don't want to be around people anymore who judge or talk about what people do. I want to be around people who dream and support and do things." So find those people who celebrate the authentic you, not the people who want you to hide behind a facade. I laugh a little too loud, and I love reading romance novels. And one of my post-pandemic goals is to see Taylor Swift in concert with one of my work besties. I'm never going to win a Nobel Prize, and I haven't published in the top journal in my field. And my name is certainly not recognizable around the world, let alone on my own college campus. But over the past decade, I've mentored some pretty fantastic students. I married the guy who loves me just as I am and who supports me through the good and the bad. And my daughter, she's told me that she wants to be a mommy when she grows up, which I think might be the biggest compliment ever. I can't put those things on my professional vita, but they mean more to me than those harsh words that are meant to keep me in my place. So regardless of what your decade looked like, you're still here. You are resilient, and you are amazing in your own way. And by sharing the real you with the rest of the world, you can encourage the next generation to avoid the stifling pressure of keeping up appearances and instead enjoy the freedom that comes with living a whole, authentic life. Thank you.